Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Selections from the Weird Library of AP Strange. I'm your host, AP Strange, and I'm going to show you some books from my weird library. I should mention also, since I started doing these videos, I also launched a podcast, and it's called The AP Strange Show. It should be available on all your podcast players. So go check that out. Go type that in. I suppose you would do it on your phone though, so it would be more like this than this. But either way, look for it, and you can find one episode up there. And if you're watching this after the day of this video release, there will be at least two. So uh, we got our goblin here. Goblin is in attendance. I had hoped to have a dragon in this video, but she was being uncooperative, so I couldn't bring her out. But I do have books and a goblin. So uh, let's see what we have today. Um, for an upcoming episode of my show, the subject of MK Ultra came up, and it's something that people talk about in conspiracy land. If I can say the word conspiracy without getting my channel taken down by they. Uh, it's this book right here, "The Search for the Manchurian Candidate" by John Marks. Um, this one's kind of a cool, almost historic document. John Marks, I guess, had done a lot of work prior. He had written a book called "The CIA and the Cult of Intelligence," and this is based on a lot of Freedom of Information Act requests about MK Ultra, which was kind of only this was released in 1979, so it was pretty fresh. The American public did not know at the time that since the 1950s, the CIA had been trying to find ways to create what they called the Manchurian candidate, kind of like somebody they could control the actions of that would not remember it afterwards. So this is one of those books that's kind of deep in the lore for it. It's because there's a lot of garbage out there. Obviously, we're talking about conspiracy theories. There's a whole lot of stuff that's maybe not true, and this stuff is based on actual Freedom of Information Act requests, and it's an early book on it. I read it years ago, and I was expecting it to be way more paranoid than it was, but it's actually pretty straightforward. I mean, this guy did work for and with the government and the State Department for years, so take that for what it's worth. But it is informative. I think it's a good place to start if you actually want to know a little bit about government mind control operations. So, uh, get the heavy stuff out of the way, and we'll move on to the real serious disclosure stuff. And that one is a fairly hard to find these days book, "Stranger at the Pentagon" by Dr. Frank E. Stranges. No relation to me. Dr. Stranges was quite a character. And this book has, let's see, "These are the true facts behind the U.S. government's silence on UFO landings, contacts, and its collaboration with an extraterrestrial individual?" Question mark? Question mark? Uh, the extraterrestrial individual being referenced here is the one and only Valiant Thor. Valiant Thor is kind of a stylish figure. He's got really good hair. That's him. He's from Venus. He was working with the government. At least he was in the 60s, maybe the 50s and the 60s. And this has the uh, something written by Valiant Thor. It's is a native of the planet Venus, and it's really fun to always read these things because uh, it just I love it. I love it. It entertains me to no end to read contactee literature and stuff that's purportedly from one of the spacemen themselves. And this has a whole big long recounting from Valiant Thor, and then it has A little bit by Frank Strangis in here. A shocking amount of this book wasn't written by Frank Strangis. Some of it is newspaper clippings of flying saucer stuff. Some of it is little essays submitted by other people. There's a whole lot of flying saucer photos. Let's see, flying saucer photos. Where'd they go? Including the ones by Professor, scare quotes, George Adamski. There we go. One of my favorite flying saucers, even if it's fake. Don't care. So yeah, there's a little bit. There's like profiles on different ufologists. There's a whole lot of pictures for a book written by a doctor. No, Strangest had a doctor, like a PhD from some manner of divinity school. So he's really the Reverend Doctor Strangest. Um, but he's quite a character. Um, his unabashed presentation here about Valiant Thor working with the Pentagon. I would absolutely love it with all the recent disclosure stuff. My favorite outcome of that would be that they come out and say, you know what? Frank Strangis was right. We got Valiant Thor. Valiant Thor is here. And that's the disclosure, because I think a lot of the disclosure bros out there, I think their heads would just explode. And it sounds like the level of absurdity uh, that we would be we've come to expect from the phenomena. And speaking of absurdity, our last book is a special treasure of mine. This is Criswell Predicts, from now until the year 2000. So that's kind of odd, because Criswell had predicted the end of the world would happen prior to the year 2000. So we could say that maybe he's not that accurate. But for people that don't know about Frank Strangis, let's see, not Frank Strangis. I already talked about him. People that don't know about Criswell, Jaron King, Criswell King was a actor, sort of, in Ed Wood's movies, most notably uh, Plan 9 from Outer Space. At the very beginning, he's doing the narration, and he says, "We are all very concerned about the future, my friends, for that is where you and I will spend the rest of our lives. Future events such as these may affect us in the future," which is just excellent writing. Um, and I've always I love Criswell just wherever he appears. He was also was also tied up in the UFO subject, because I think he was the MC at the first flying saucer convention, if I'm not mistaken, like the earliest one that they had. He writes about landings of craft in here. So here's one that says Interplanetary Meeting, Las Vegas, Nevada, March 10th, 1990. The very first interplanetary convention will be held in the convention center on the famed strip, with the colony citizens of Mars, Venus, Neptune, and the Moon in full representation. Governor Sawyer will make the opening welcome address. And that is directly underneath a older term for an African American leader being assassinated. And it says, I predict before October 1968, one of the leaders of the Negro civil rights movement in the United States will be assassinated. Uh, ah, eh, oh, wow. Wow, you got one. You know, if you throw enough stuff against the wall, eventually some of it might come out true. But yeah, it's Criswell. What's not to like about it? This is a great one. There is another book by Criswell about tarot, and I kind of wish I had had that. Someday that will be added to the weird library. But let's see. Oh, he's got a bio in here too. The man, simply known as Criswell, is a native of Indiana. His interests have carried him through many careers, from journalism to pre med school, and always he has predicted the events of the future with uncanny accuracy. His first newspaper job was terminated when he wrote an obituary prior to the subject's death. Until finally, predicting the future has become a way of life for him. Criswell now lives in California, where he writes his famous Criswell Predicts syndicated columns. He is seen frequently on nationwide TV programs, and his introduction to this volume gives insight into both the man and his gift of prophecy. What Criswell predicts is amazing, intriguing, shocking, fearless, astounding, dynamic, terrifying, and too accurate. So, yeah, he was on the Tonight Show. He wrote for papers. He was all over the place. He was a busy man, that Criswell. Entertaining character, definitely, definitely a kooky sort, and somebody whose volume I am happy to have as a selection in my weird library. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. Go check out the podcast, and if you don't want to, then fine. You don't have to, I guess. But I hope you're enjoying the videos. Check in with me next time, and I'll see what other strange tomes I can pull off the shelf for you. Thanks.